Hi there, and welcome back to History of Fleetwood Mac Singles. I'm Anita. Although I've been calling my channel History of Fleetwood Mac Singles, I didn't really progressively think about getting into the LPs and really the rest of my collection. I had asked some time ago about some help with maybe what to call this channel, but I still haven't come to a decision, so we're just gonna just keep calling it that for now, but we're gonna be starting the LPs today. So I also kind of contended with whether to start with my pre Buckingham Nicks LPs, which I don't have that many. I have the box sets. I had some 45s, if you recall, and I'm certainly a fan. I love everything Fleetwood Mac. I actually have some really neat outside of Fleetwood Mac related pre Buckingham Nick stuff. Um, but I'm not sure that's enough for a video. So I think what I might do, if anybody's even interested, is that when I get around to the box set of the early Fleetwood Mac before Stevie and Lindsay, I'll probably pull that in and put it with it at that time. I thought there was enough material here for Buckingham Nicks that it would be fine by itself, just as one video. So we're gonna start with that, and kind of what I'm gonna start with a little bit is everybody knows about Buckingham Nicks and mostly, I imagine, if you're here, how it was founded and such. A couple of interesting names that don't get brought up enough is that, well, number one, Stevie constantly talks about working for Keith Olsen, being his cleaning lady, while Lindsay stayed at home and made the music that would later become Buckingham Nicks. But then it talks about them meeting Keith Olsen um, when they went in to record some of their songs. So I'm never sure which came first. But two other names, Ted Fagan, I believe is how you say it, and Lee Lasseff, were two other people that were involved with Keith Olsen. Keith Olsen really facilitated working with Jim Keltner and Waddy Wachtel as the band behind to work with Buckingham Nicks to kind of give it a little fuller sound, and to make those sessions that Lindsay and Stevie had done in the coffee plant a little bit fuller and richer. And of course, would lead to a great relationship with Waddy Wachtel. And it was also Lee Lasseff, I'm pretty sure I have that right, that was the one to sign them on with Anthem. It was really his doing. I mean, they were all there. I'm not cutting anybody out, but it's just not. I know those names, but it's just not names that get brought up often. If you read the books and such like that, I'm sure they're mentioned in there. But generally, like in short conversation, it's really Keith Olsen because he's a big player in with Fleetwood Mac. But those two people, in addition, really helped Buckingham Nicks become Buckingham Nicks, which later turned to Fleetwood Mac being Fleetwood Mac. Interestingly enough, again, Buckingham Nicks were the last to sign with Anthem, and when Buckingham Nicks got issued on Polydor, it said Polydor, but was Anthem Records was given the credit for Buckingham Nicks. And the reason I kind of bring this up is because some of the things I was going to talk about, because I was trying to make this interesting and a little outside the box and not the usual, once upon a time there's a couple named Lindsay Buckingham and Stevie Nicks that we all know, but just kind of some ideas and outside the box wondering about Buckingham Nicks and how they came to be and such. Polydor was founded in 1913. I mean, it was a pretty big label, and it lasted for years, and it's still going, but it's now under Polygram, I believe, which is a whole other story. But by 1973, Polydor had under their belt James Brown, Greg Allman, and Manfred Mann, to name a few. And some of the reason I bring that up is because when you come back to the whole, the record cover that we know of Buckingham Nicks, with Stevie scantily clad and Lindsay, or both of them topless, I always found it really interesting. It was really a bummer moment for Stevie. And I I thought it was weird that the style that Jimmy Wachtel, which is Waddy Wachtel's brother, went for was not his usual style. If you go look at his work, I don't feel that the photo of Buckingham Nicks really matches the rest of his work. He did definitely more face shots. There wasn't a lot of, you know, torso up and such. Um, and Stevie and Lindsay were signed already. So it wasn't like the record company was like, you know what, go do a little saucier photo shoot. And so it always just really made me wonder how it did come to what it came to. You know, just why they decided to go that way. And why I say that more so is because I would think that an unknown couple and a big label, as Polydor was, even Anthem was doing pretty well. They just, you know, got turned into Polydor. That was a real risk taker. I mean, prior to 1973, we had like, you know, Jimi Hendrix with Electric Ladyland and All the Naked Ladies, Controversy, Scandal. That was 1968. John Lennon and Yoko Ono with the Two Virgins cover. 1969 with Blind Faith with the pubescent 14-year-old naked, topless. You know, a burgeoning couple wouldn't really want to, I would think, wouldn't want such a scandalous cover. So it always just interested me that that was the decided upon cover, let alone poor Stevie Nicks having to go through that. And, you know, when I look at it, I definitely see art as we all do. I don't see it as like, ooh, sexy or, you know, naked Stevie and Lindsay. It's very 60s to me. It's very peace, love, and granola. But it was also a really big chance. It was a really big risk. It wasn't to me even so much about Stevie or Lindsay, you know, being concerned about their family, what they thought, or friends, or anything like that. It's that they're a couple of nobodies looking for a major record deal and opting for a cover like that would definitely get attention, but maybe not the right kind of attention. And not because of nudity, but just because, you know, we're too focused on that or it's too risque to put in the stores. We're not going to concentrate on the music. So it's just some kind of interesting stuff, a little background, a little thought that I had, and just kind of wondered about how they did come to that conclusion. Like I said, they were already signed. They didn't have to um, impress them anymore. They'd already, you know, they'd already signed on the dotted line, and so I can't imagine that Polydor or Anthem said, "Hey, you know what you should do? You should go back and do some shots like this." And then also, this is a Jimmy Wachtel cover, and she's very clothed in this, and of course, this is Stevie Nicks, you know, 20, 30 years later. We know that. But it just always seemed to me so different because, and it's not quite torso, it's a little bit more, like I said, more headshot. Um, just wonderings and just kind of interest. But anyway, um, so the first album I'm going to start off with, even though I'm talking about Buckingham Nicks, but we do know that Stevie Nicks and Lindsay were both in a band called The Changing Times. And then they were more notably, more in the Fritz Rabin Memorial Band. And in 2021, an album was released with a very small handful of tunes that included Stevie and Lindsay early. Certainly photography with Stevie and Lindsay, as is on the back. But this was a collective works, so only one, two, three songs are definitely Stevie and Lindsay. And then there's one more with just Lindsay Buckingham. And then you have the other remaining members, as I had mentioned, with the 45s, Joy Bonner. I think that was the original. I think Iris she's later, because they're still going. They're still working together. here and there, still making music. Javier, of course, um, and yeah. So, but this was kind of cool. So, just because it's something from prior to Buckingham Nicks, I thought it was worth showing first, even though it came out in 2021. But it is nice to have on vinyl some pre Buckingham Nicks work. It's pretty cool. Sound is great considering, and I really wish. Supposedly there was supposed to be some more, and I really wish that they would do that. I really wish they'd put out some more. I'm sure there's rights, and certainly this quarrel with Stevie and Lindsay will probably never get anything more out of Fritz or Buckingham Nicks ever. But um, I've heard that passed around so much. Who has the rights? Who's okayed it? Who's nay-nayed it? So, but so this was really a treat. And if you can find this, you might be able to find it on Discogs. But I know if you go to Fritz or look up Fritz, you ought to be able to find the website and get it directly from them. And it might still have some available for Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham and or Fleetwood Mac lovers. I highly recommend this. So that was the first thing I want to start off with. Secondly, again, signed to Polydor. This was really a neat thing because this came out just prior to the Buckingham Nicks album coming out. So this was a real find for me. It was a sampler from Polydor, and it had Buckingham Nicks Crying in the Night. So it was like a little sampler. So even before the album had come out, which I thought was pretty cool. So, before we even knew, there's that. So this is a real find. There's another one somewhere, and I can never remember it. And I've asked friends about it, and they've shown me, and then I've forgotten again. But it seems like there's another sampler of Polydor with, I think, another song, or like a Christmas, something that came out like at Christmas time, like Hey, all of our hits. By this time, Buckingham Nicks had come out, but they included another song to renew interest in people buying that. So, really neat find for Buckingham Nicks collectors to have this nice little rarity, because this was even before the album came out. So, kind of a cool thing. Now we're going to go to the infamous album. So this is a real nice, clean copy. An original U.S. release. With the infamous cover. And where Stevie Nicks went out and bought a very expensive blouse, but then was asked to remove it, which is... I don't know why. It makes no sense to me. Again, I think this cover is beautiful. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But like I said, it was more risk, not so much for them, but like I said, for the label and for the, you want something to be out there for everybody to be attracted to. Not too sexy because you don't want to scare away anybody, and you want it to be about the music. So you want a nice happy medium. So if they had done something with Stevie and it was kind of falling off, or there was even more of an illusion, almost more innuendo than just bam, I think it actually would have possibly even done a little bit better. These are my unsolicited opinions to just give a different conversation and spin while I show these records. So, the Buckingham Nicks album, complete with the gatefold. Instead of real nice clean copy. People wondered if that's the infamous shirt, the blouse. I think it is. Pretty sure it is. And then the back that has no writing on it. This is how it came, and this was really interesting because it was Buckingham Nicks, but most all labels will say Nicks and Buckingham, which is also how you know it's an original pressing. Nicks and Buckingham, and then underneath Buckingham Nicks, which I always thought was really interesting. Yeah, so nice clean copy. So the gatefold American first release of Buckingham Nicks. Secondly, we have several, not several, but a few copies. After they joined Fleetwood Mac, it was released again, due to the popularity of Fleetwood Mac as a non-gatefold, just front and back. These are also just as rare as the gatefold. Of course, the gatefold are the first generation. If you're a collector, that's what you want. But, this is certainly worth having as well. And because it's non-gatefold, all the information, not all of it, but most all of it is on the back. Because it's not gatefold, so it can't be inside. And then, same thing though, the record will in itself say Nicks and Buckingham Nicks. And other than the stickers, which have I mentioned how much that frosts me off? The only reason I'll give it a go is because, as I've mentioned in the past, I grew up in Santa Cruz, California, and Logos was a really special used record and bookstore. And they aren't with us anymore. They closed down their doors about, 5 years ago now. But they've been a staple in Santa Cruz for like 30, 40 years, forever. And I always want to try and remove these in general, but now I wouldn't dare remove them because I just remember being there that day, getting them, almost a lot of my records. And I had friends there who knew how much I loved Stevie's, so they would hold stuff for me and put stuff to the side, and so many stories, and I'm sure this was one of them. And, I got this. They also would always stamp the date. And this one actually doesn't have the year, but it's as is, as if there's any problem with it. It's a pretty sweet copy. And $7.50. You're not going to find Buckingham Nicks that way ever again. It's still pretty rare to come by, but in today's record world, the way people charge and, the resurgence, which everybody says we're having another resurgence. We're not. It's just, I don't know. It's popular. I don't know. It comes and goes with popularity. But right now, record prices are they're obscene, and they're not made any better with Record Store Day. I'm guilty. I'm a full Record Store Day person who goes and stands in line and pays good money for the same crap over and over again, as you'll see the further we get into the collection. But yeah, it used to be that a copy of Buckingham Nicks should run you about $20, and that was kind of expensive. And now they're, 50 if you're lucky, 100's more the norm, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse if there's any difference, like some of the stuff I'll show you. This next one is another U.S. one. To my understanding, this got pressed several times as a non-gatefold afterwards. After the initial run of Buckingham Nicks, they joined Fleetwood Mac. The gatefolds that were out there, and because the label dropped them, and they were with Fleetwood Mac anyway, there's no reason to repress as a gatefold album. But with popularity of Fleetwood Mac, it was certainly worthwhile to repress these. So the only difference, there's nothing different in the sleeve, but the labels just have small variances. And as you know from all the 45s I just showed you, that interests me. And although I can't tell you which one is maybe 75, which one is 77, that information is probably in here. I just know that these are different runs at different times, again, with a continuing popularity. To my knowledge, they were run by Polydor, licensed runs, okayed runs, same thing as licensed, up through about the 80s, mid-80s, early 80s, early to mid-80s, before they stopped making them altogether. What was done was done. Yes, we know they're in Fleetwood Mac. Yes, we know about Buckingham Nicks. find it. Good luck. We made you enough copies. So you should be able to find it by now. So, to my knowledge, there were no more pressed non-gatefold reissues of Buckingham Nicks because, you know, the thrill is kind of gone, if you will. But other countries certainly had their fill. This one, of course, would have come out after Fleetwood Mac, mostly because it notes that it's a collector's item, contains the original version of Crystal, and this one is out of Canada. It's a gatefold, but they made a special, so if they pressed it, they did just a special edition and probably one run of it, not repeated runs of non-gatefold, but to make it a special collector's item, which is fine. It's great. I love it. And then there's a little blurb on the back. Still no some record information. So yeah, this one right here says 75. There you go. So probably right after they joined Fleetwood Mac, Polydor Canada was like, hey, let's make a reprint of this. And this one is even funnier because even though it's correct with Buckingham Nicks, they decided to have Stevie spelled Stevi, which is random. Very strange. So a really unique label for that. And this would be a Canadian, pressed in 1975, gatefold collector's item. So that's a really neat have as well. Next up, we have a German. Let's go in order here. This is the German release of Buckingham Nicks as a single. And this one, no year that I can read, but it's non-gatefold and has the info on the back. But they list the songs. So it's not all the inside information plus the songs. It's just the songs and a small part of what the information was on the inside. All the credits, musicians, what have you. So this one is out of Germany. Also a little bit more vibrant in the greens on the back here. And a little bit more black and white than that kind of sepia. That just shy of... some of them, this is more proficient as well. You'll notice on different copies. A little bit of color in the feather in her hair. Sorry for the glare. Which is really pretty. And the label on this one. Oof, that needs some cleaning. So yeah. So Nicks and Buckingham again though. Just so weird how it flip-flops like that. So that is the first one that I have out of Germany. And I'm going to say that this was probably pressed after they joined Fleetwood Mac. I don't think that this is a 1973 version. Could be. Discogs has it. Discogs says you can tell by the run out and all that and stuff. And I've mentioned that with the 45s. I mean, I believe it. And I really don't know how to read all that stuff. I mean, I do and I don't. Some records, and I'll show you with like Wild Heart and Other Side of the Mirror, perhaps. It's really kind of cool because some of the run out, there's like little symbols, there's a little heart, there's little inscriptions. This is dedicated to somebody, or there's maybe a little inside joke, maybe. But supposedly by the numbers and such like that, you can tell which plant it was pressed and run from, and what year and stuff like that. And honestly, that for as much as I collect records, I'm kind of like, okay. I wish I did know the year. I think that should be on all the packaging, but I'm not big on which plant and why. I just want the records, from the different countries and, these different collector editions, such as this one that came out of Germany, which obviously would have been pressed again well after they joined Fleetwood Mac. This one says, edition. It's a limited special. Unfortunately, it has a price tag Mar on it, which is really unfortunate. But again, no year on it. But I definitely would say that this one is definitely pressed afterwards, because it would be a special edition. So it could be that this is how it looked, that the first one could be 1973, because it looks verbatim to this. Being as this one is a special edition one, that could have been 73, and this could have been the one that was pressed after they joined Fleetwood Mac, got famous. And so Germany did their own press release to resurge this album. Kind of hard to say. And I think that for the special edition one, almost looks the same as the other one. There's really not much of a difference on the label. There is, but not as much as you would think. Still, we have the Nicks and Buckingham Nicks, which is just kind of funny. So, unfortunately, that's it for my Buckingham Nicks legit ones. And although I say unfortunately, because that's a nice little stack, I sorely am missing the Japan issue and the infamous, is it Australian or Canadian? The white version, the white cover, where it's a white cover and their name is in really pretty scrolly letters. Funny story. When I was young and stupid, which was like yesterday and the day before that, I went into a record store in San Jose, California, and it was up there. And I mean, I'm always scouring record stores for as long as I can remember. And I went in and I saw it said Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, and I thought, oh, that's really weird. And I asked somebody who worked there if I could see it. They had to take it down off the wall. And me, my 17, 18-year-old infinite wisdom who knew everything at the time, was like, this is BS. This is not real. I mean, what are you kidding me? Like another country, another, like a whole different album cover? Absolutely not. I'm not falling for this. It was like $50. And this was probably like in, 88, 89, maybe a little bit earlier. But I went pass. Really nice copy. Very clean. And like I said, it was about $50. And, if I could go back and visit that me, I'd first slap me really hard. And of course I would have that copy because it's sweet. And little did I know that's completely legit and highly coveted and expensive and very hard to get. So shame on me. But, I learned later that that's, so there's that one. And like I said, there's a legit Japanese one, complete with Obi, that was released in 1973. They also have done several special editions. So, that would just be a matter of, do I want them all? The answer is yes. Just, I haven't gotten around to it. And they're very expensive. And again, they are expensive because they're worth it, and it's Buckingham Nicks Records. And it's the Japan issue and the Australian, or why am I forgetting, the Canadian issue? It's Australia. Anyway. And they are hard to come by, for sure. But now, again, like I said, with records being as expensive as they are, they've just even escalated more. So, But all that money that I could have saved up to possibly find that one, I instead was a moron. And in 2013, all of a sudden, these colored vinyls started popping up. And I don't use the word vinyls much, but I mean multiple copies of the same album. So we have the Buckingham Nicks again. This one came out in 2013. It was a And I thought it was a reissue, like a commemorative, possibly even licensed. I didn't know. It showed the Anthem label, which I thought was really strange. Because if you remember what I just said, it's um, they got signed into Anthem, but they were still showing Polydor. So showing Anthem, but I think that that's how they get away with making it a bootleg because it never came out on Anthem. They signed with Anthem, but it turned into Polydor. So anyway, 2013, and the first one that I found, which was this one, was green vinyl, and I about lost my mind. I love green. I love this album. And I thought, oh my god, this is amazing. So I bought it. And it was like $50, maybe, thereabouts. Well then, next thing you know, first of all, I'll show this really pretty green. Really goes with the album, the aesthetic. I mean, it matches the kind of psychedelic. Can't really get the shade, but it's very lovely. See everything on my table, I'm sorry. Very pretty. But next thing you know, what? I mean, it's coming out in blue. It's coming out in purple. It's coming out in gold. It's coming out in marble. It's coming out in red. It's coming out in pink. It's coming out... And it goes and goes and goes through 2014, 2015. And Lindsay and Stevie aren't making any money. You know, I'm a completist. I am that kind of person who you know, not going to lie. If I pass them in a record store and they're like 20, $30, and it's the gold or the pink or the marble, I'll buy it just to add because I'm that person, unfortunately. But it just got to be obscene. It got to be so stupid. And then it just kind of petered out as to what year it was coming out. They were just releasing colors. And so I stopped after blue. I know a couple other my friends have, you know, 5 and 6 colors. And I'm just like, no. I got green and blue because they were amongst the first. And I gave it that. I gave it that maybe it was that, you know, like I said, legit. And or just a nice, simple, you know, homage that says we still, as all these years later, 2013 would have been what, the 40th, 50th anniversary? So, yeah, like why, 40, you know, anyway, why aren't we getting it finally? So I thought, okay, maybe somebody's doing it, you know, the sound is not bad on these. I'll give it that. That's about all I'll give it. But, yeah, they just kept coming out with it. It got to be obscene and dumb and a waste of paper and vinyl and people's money, really. And like I said, Buckingham or, you know, Stevie are getting the money for it, so I just stopped. But so those are 2 issues from 2013 that came out. And to my knowledge, the green is the first one that came out, rightfully so, because I mean it's kind of matching this, and the blue makes perfect sense because, you know, kind of goes with this. But all those other random colors that was coming out as, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's just colors to be colors to make it completists like myself and, you know, people who just want something cool and kitschy. It's less about the music and honoring its anniversary than a complete money grab, not by the artist. So that is it. And I will wrap this up with this really neat, again, another money grab, for $43, no less. 46 with shipping. This came out in 2021 as well. It was very nicely done. I want to say it had been, there's also a boat ton. If you think there's so many releases on vinyl, wait till I get to the CDs. I mean, it doesn't end. And this was a really nice release by this company, Rox Fox, that it's a bootleg company. They try and make it look completely legit and, you know, that they're all up and up. They're not. They make bootleg records. But this was made with a lot of love. And this has some of the demos that have surfaced on the internet. and some live stuff. Again, all surfaced on the internet. I want to say one or two things that Javier Pacheco had given to a website some years ago. I want to say one of the tracks was one that he donated, so it got pretty much sniped, you know, from him, from that site, and put onto this record. Not cool, really, but it's there. But they put together a nice cover. They put together a very nice write up. Um, like I think it's made with love. And they haven't released 50 colors. So I'll give them a little bit of credit. I'll give them a little bit of credit because I'm grateful that, it's cool. I like this. I like the write up, this little insert. I like the information that's provided in here. These pictures. Picture of that is fantastic. Little things like that. Early Buckingham Nicks performing. Really neat. And this matches the aesthetic of this, not with the original Buckingham Nicks cover, but it's bright yellow. And this, my lord, is some heavy grain vinyl. Feels like a Cadillac here. So, yeah, so this one is again, this would be more of I'm not promoting this, I'm not encouraging this, but it's out there. I think I got it on Amazon, but I've seen it at my local record store. And it is if I had an opportunity to press a record, even though I shouldn't and I'd feel awful, but as the fan that I am, was able to put together something, I would put together something like this. As an homage and a just a love letter to Buckingham Nicks, for example. So that's about all I'll give it. But that wraps up my Buckingham Nicks collection. And yeah. So going forward, we will get right into Fleetwood Mac the White Album. Quite a bit of that. I don't think there are any singles from that, but I have some live, more bootleg stuff. Bootleg stuff from that was legitimate bootleg stuff. And that was kind of fun finding over the years, over my, teenage years to adulthood. Because, that was the stuff people would record and put on vinyl back in the day. Now it's CD or MP3s. But it was fun to find that stuff. It was super cheap. It wasn't about the money so much as like, hey man, were you at that show maybe or something? And this would be really cool to have. And it's collectible now just because it came out around the time. And it's more about that than try to make a buck or two. They did, but it wasn't as much, I don't think, as it is today. So hopefully you'll join me. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you for continuing on with me. We have a long way to go with vinyl, with the LPs, because I don't think as many videos as the 45s, but quite a few. So till next time, thanks again for joining me, and have yourself a great night. Bye.